Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 8 of the 4-Star Podcast. I am your host, Jordan DuPont, joined as always by my co-hosts, Nikola, Teige and Andrew Freeman. No major announcements this week, I believe. Feel free to interject if I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. All right, so why don't we just dig into it? Per usual with just the time of the year, we're going to start off with the Cubs, who actually have been looking very, very good. We were very nervous going into the Rays series, but they wound up winning the series 2-1. Game 1, we won 1-0. Game 2, we won 2-1. Game 3, we lost 3-4 when we should have had a sweep. We'll dig into that. And so far, so good on the Padres series. Up 2-1 in the 4-game set so far. Game 1, we won 2-1. Game 2, we got blown out. And Game 3, we did the blowing out. So we'll dig in here. I think good topic to cover for both series so far is Marcus Stroman is an absolute dog right now. Probably put up 2 of his better performances of the year and is just looking absolutely lights out right now.
Yeah, complete game against Tampa. I didn't allow a run. 6 innings against the Padres, only 1 earned. Yeah, he's just looking great, lights out.
And what I find funny about it too, so much is that, like, on Twitter, I don't know why I do it to myself, but everybody's like, well, then trade him, see what you can get for him. And it's like, no, like we said last week, he wants to be here.
Welcome to Chicago sports.
I know,
Twitter.
I know.
It never stops.
And I go back every hour. I'm like, hey, what's going on?
There was a Padres beat writer, I think it was today, that suggested, like, hey, maybe the Cubs want to trade Stroman and
Gomes to the Padres.
And it's like we have basically the same record as you guys. Like, no,
not only that, take it from a guy from this podcast group that's followed the Padres. Like, who are you gonna trade for? like who are you gonna trade away to get those guys?
Yeah,
like,
who do they even have left in their farm system at this point? That
they're untouchable. They're untouchables. They're Jackson Merrill, I know, and then the other untouchables, that Salas kid who's 16, but like he's already like destroying rookie ball. So those are the only 2 untouchables. Other than that, like, I don't even know who's in their system, and I follow them half as much, like almost as much as I do the Cubs. So,
well, and to me, that just sounds like a repeat of us sending them getting Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini. I know that. Was that a trade or was that free agency?
No, it was a trade.
It was a trade. We got Zach Davies.
The difference is Darvish was still on that really big contract, and it was just a pure salary dump.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We got Owen Cassie out of it. That's about it. And he's still, I believe, he's in AA now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if this was a Padres podcast, I'd say that they made a horrible mistake getting rid of Victor Caratini also. But, that's for that's for 180 later.
Well, I certainly, like, all these people that are saying we should get rid of Stroh at the deadline. It's like if we can continue playing the way we've been playing these last few games the rest of the year, we actually have a shot. It seems like they're actually attempting to turn a corner, which we've been
this is the most
from the mountaintops about for the last 2 weeks. But this is the most production we've seen in a long time, and I don't want to get rid of Marcus Stroman. He is so much fun to watch. He's a great pitcher. He's going to be right in there if he keeps this up for the Cy Young mix. I mean, why would you want to dump that? He's on half a year, because his contract is up at the end of the year, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a player option.
Sign him, keep him.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the thinking would be that because he has a player option, that because he's pitching so well this year, that he will opt out for a more of a long-term deal, especially at his age, 32 years old. So the thinking is, if you're not going to pay him a long-term deal, see if you can get something for him. But
here's a great solution. Pay him.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Give him money. Give him a fair amount of compensation to come and be a great pitcher for your baseball team. This isn't that hard. You're the goddamn Cubs.
And I feel like he wouldn't be pushing for like a 5 or 6 year deal. I think he'd probably be sticking along the lines of like a 3-year deal, especially at his age. But I don't know if he's looking for a long term. If he's looking for a longer term than that, like especially at 32, it does get dicey there if he's looking for a super long deal.
I agree with the injury. I think probably the max he's going to go for would be more like 5 years. And it's like, but yeah, like the type of pitcher he is, it's like he's been durable, knock on wood. Like he's been pretty durable, and he's a ground ball pitcher. Like if he keeps up what he's been doing this year and last year, because he started off rough for us, but he locked in.
Mhm.
I mean, like, dude, like he doesn't have to be your ace either. If we get Shohei, that's your ace, obviously. Like Marcus is your numbers. Shohei, Marcus, Steele, 1, 2, 3. Come on, dude.
Easy.
We're gonna keep on trying to speak Shohei into existence.
I
here,
will
I think
speak
throughout this
into
entire
existence.
podcast.
I don't care.
We're going to be like those astrology girls and just manifest it into existence.
The stars don't lie.
While we're on the topic of pitching, got to give a shout out to Jamison Tyone. He pitched game 1 of the Padres series and actually looked like the guy we wanted to sign. I mean, he had a great performance. Again, we won that game 2-1. I know he got into a little bit of a jam in the 6th because Ross pulled him at 5 2/5. Was it the 5th again?
He only pitched 4 2/3.
Oh, dang.
I'm pretty
okay,
sure.
my bad. I thought it was
Maybe,
5
I don't know. Maybe I forgot. I don't know. I was at that game.
Because I remember, I remember thinking like, oh man, he was so close to getting a quality start. It was a shame they pulled him, but bullpen actually worked us out of a jam when they pulled him, and looking good. So I'm hoping that can stick around too. Because I mean, again, like we're talking about right now, Stroman, Steele when he gets off of the injured list. I know Hendricks is getting beat up a little bit right now as we're recording this, but that's because Phil Cuzzy is about as useful calling balls and strikes as the 3 blind mice.
It has been it was a horrific strikes. The game's not even over yet, but like I'm already just checked out of the game because I just cannot handle that awful strike zone. Ross got tossed in the 2nd inning. Like he got tossed like that. And I do not blame him one bit.
I saw, Nick, you're already advocating for the robot umps on Twitter. So
robot
I know you're pissed off if you're advocating for that.
Oh, man.
Robot umps yesterday. Like, it's so infuriating. Like, Cubs literally had 3 batters in the first 2 innings called out, striking out looking on a ball that was like 3 inches off the plate. Like, you can't have that.
And Hendricks was not.
And Hendricks wasn't getting those calls either.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, no, I agree. To kind of circle back to praising Tyone, as this podcast fan base will know, as I didn't really like him that much so far, but what he did do well, and I anti-jinxed it because when I saw that he was pitching on the only Cubs game I'm probably gonna get to this year, I was like, oh, we're done, and, so I anti-jinxed. He did well, and I did. So I was like. Since I was at the game, I didn't really pay attention to where the pitches were going, how it landed. I was in right field, kind of hard to see, like first base line. So, so I looked up the numbers afterwards, and all year he's been plagued by his cutter, especially against lefties. But the cutter in general, he's been using it 24.4% of the time with bad results. On Friday, he only threw it 9 times, 12% of the time. Most of them were against righties, right? So he's kind of learning his lesson with throwing the pitch. Against lefties in the first 3 innings, when he went 9 up, 9 down, I think he was perfect the first 3 innings. He relied heavily on his fastball, curveball, and changeups against lefties, which is exactly what Tommy Hotovy's been preaching about, and it was great. He was getting Juan Soto popping out. I think Carpenter was in that game. He wasn't doing nothing. Odor wasn't doing much, until he started getting a couple doubles later on in the game. So Tyone's formula was fastball, curveball, changeups. He would throw in a cutter. He'd throw in a different pitch because you got to change it up. And then sweepers and cutters against righties with great success. Machado got jammed. I think Tatis got jammed. The base hit Tatis hit was on a sweeper, and it had a 60-mile-per-hour exit velo. Like, it was a slow dribbler of all dribblers. So and then also, I didn't go back farther into the season because it was a lot of effort just to do this one game. But his sinker in this one game against righties early on, nothing. Nobody was getting nothing off of it. So I don't know if the sinker is new for him. I don't know if he just didn't think to use it early in the year. Like I said, I haven't done the research on it. Maybe I should. But if he can start bringing that sinker, sweeper, and cutter against righties, fastball, changeup, curveball against lefties, I'll happily eat crow because that's the blueprint. He just found the blueprint. If he gives us 5 innings, 1 to 2 run ball every time, we'll all take that. So hopefully that's kind of his strategy going forward.
And that'd set us up with that would make our rotation super stable because, again, Stroman, you're getting anywhere from 0 to 2 runs against you every time. Steele, same thing, anywhere between 0 and 2 runs that the other team's going to put up against you. Hendricks, when he's on, same thing. Tyone, again, gave up 1 run this last game. If he found the formula and can stick to it, 2 runs or less. I mean, that's 4 guys that, your ERA is going to be sitting right around 2. And that is how you win baseball games nowadays. If you can keep the other team to 2 runs or less, you have a really, really good shot of winning that game. So I think moving forward, if we can keep that going, we're going to be sitting very pretty.
Yeah, well, with the way the Cubs hit and runners in scoring position,
2
you
runs
may
might
need
not be...
2 runs might not be.
Yeah.
Well, that's
that'd be too many.
Anybody that's listening to this podcast, we've all talked about it before, and I've mentioned it on Twitter this past week. Like, part of the thing is like when you like our lineups at work, Ross will have a lineup that scores 10 runs, and then be like, "All right, today I'm leading off Miles Mastroboni," and I just like it's it's fixing what isn't broken. It's he's trying to do these things, and that's what irritates me is he does splits for the sake of splits. He puts in lefties against righties for the sake of it. When it's like, dude, you have all pro hitters. Like, yeah, sure, it's kind of lame to see like 7 righties in the lineup, but if it's guys like Suzuki and Swanson and Horner, what's the problem? There's no problem.
And that's the thing. Like, I understand the splits. You like your matchups. You have your analytics. You want to do your splits. The problem is like of the lefties that the Cubs have on the roster currently with Bellinger out, Talkman's been good. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Mervis, he's been struggling a little bit, but you expected that coming up. He needs to adjust. Barnhart is garbage. Rios is garbage. Mastroboni is garbage. Like, what is the point of having all these lefties in your lineup when they can't even hit righties? Like, when they can't hit at all. So, like, splits work when you have lefties that can hit, and the Cubs really don't.
At some point, you just got to get your best hitters on in the lineup and just live with the results at that point.
Unfortunately, that point was 10 games, 20 games ago,
right.
And now we're playing catch up. And it's still, we said it last week, we'll say it again. It's such a winnable division. Oh my goodness!
Yes.
Like the Brewers, I think, are still on. I think the Brewers are still up top, and
I think the Pirates are up there right now. They're
tied.
A bit of a win streak, I think.
I checked before the Cubs game today. Brewers and Pirates are tied, both 5 games ahead of us. We're in 3rd. We're also 5 games out of the wild card.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which the fact that our division leaders have the same record as the 2nd team in the wild card, or the 3rd team, in the wild card is a little sad, but that's a discussion for another time. I do have a genuine question. I've noticed I have not heard Matt Mervis's name at all lately. What is going on there? Has he not been getting any playing time, or am I hallucinating?
I mean, he's just struggling against big league pitching, which isn't uncommon for a guy making his debut. He's been with the big league team about a month or so, something like that at this point.
So we're just not going to play him to give him experience against big league pitching? Is that
well? Has he been getting plate appearances? I'll be honest, I haven't
heard his name at all.
So Ross typically sits him against lefties naturally now, and then today, does he start today? I barely watched.
He didn't start today.
I was driving all day.
No,
yeah,
Snell's on the mound.
And Snell's on the mound. Yeah, okay, exactly. So he had Weathers and Snell, so he's getting benched there, obviously. And then McClanahan we had against the Rays, he's getting benched for that. I don't know. That's the thing, right? I don't remember, because I remember Anthony Rizzo, and I know I keep going to Rizzo well, but I mean, come on, who
it's
else,
the most direct
it's
comparison.
Yeah.
It's the most direct comparison. It's fair
because Rizzo was on the Padres. He got called up, did horribly. He batted 180, I think, and then we got traded to us or whatever. And I don't know how he did his first year with us. I don't think he did well though. I think he still had to figure it out. So
no. These guys, there are guys that come in and they immediately light up the league, and then there's guys that take time. And Mervis seems like he's one of those guys that he needs to adjust to big league pitching, which that's not a problem. Like it like, yes, he's struggling, but it's not like we're gonna send him back down to AAA. Sending him back down to Iowa does him no good. We already know he can feast on AAA pitching. He's got to face big league hitting, and he's got to adjust.
To me, the fact that you're sitting him even against these lefties, though, and having these big chunks of time, 2-3 days in a row where he's not playing baseball, that almost seems like you might as well send him back to AAA so that he's at least staying consistent, seeing pitches, taking swings. If you're sitting him for 2 or 3 days and he's getting cold and getting frustrated because he's not playing, it almost seems like you're doing more harm than good to me at that point. Let him go against the lefties, even if it's going to be a bit rough. Let him work it out.
Well, see now, and this is kind of what we discussed last week of, do you want to win or do you want to give the guy some time? And
that's the thing.
And for credit where credit's due, Mancini kind of has these. Mancini's streaky, but Mancini got the lefty matchup. Mancini slaughtered Weathers. So it's like probably while we see my guess, and I truly don't know this time around, is my guess is that the rest of the season Mervis will probably stay up unless he's doing horribly, and it'll just be a platoon, and we'll see what happens next offseason.
Yeah, like Teige said, it's like what did we talk about all last week? Do you want to win or do you just want to punt on the season and develop? And it's seeming like they kind of want to win. If you want to win, then you can't put up Mervis against the lefties. They'll just eat him alive. Like, yes, you want to develop him. You want to give him plate appearances here and there. But if the Cubs are trying to win, having Mervis in that lineup just against a really good lefty isn't exactly, it's not the most optimal lineup.
My counter argument is going to be, though, we're still not putting in the most optimal lineup. To me, you're just as likely for Matt Mervis to have success against a lefty as you are Miles Mastrobuoni leading the game off against a righty. You can't tell me that you're pushing for win now if Miles Mastrobuoni is your leadoff hitter. If you're going to be making decisions like that, you might as well be making the decision. Every time you put Tucker Barnhart in the lineup and every time you put Miles Mastrobuoni in the lineup, those are 2 guaranteed outs every single time. So if you're going to be doing that, you might as well give a guy who is supposed to be your first baseman of the future some development against big league pitching if you're still going to be just throwing away outs. You can still have one spot in the lineup that might struggle a little bit, but might find success and might provide you better stuff for the future if you're trying to win. I feel like having that one spot that might be a throwaway isn't as bad as, again, putting in Mastrobuoni and Barnhart. And like the other day when you had the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, all lefties in a row. It's just the lineup decisions are still kind of confusing and frustrating. But
yeah,
I don't know. That's just me.
Eventually, like time's going to have to. They're going to have to choose a lane here at some point, whether they want to win games or whether they want to focus on developing, because we're nearly 60 games into the season now. So we have a big enough sample size, I think, to kind of determine what this team is. Although they're still one of the weirdest teams in the MLB just because of they still have a positive run differential. We keep on saying it, but they're one of the few National League teams that has a positive run differential. It's crazy. But eventually they're going to have to start making decisions on, what direction this team is going to go in. And so, once they make that choice, like that's going to have to make the decision for them in terms of where they're going to play Mervis and where his role is going forward.
I think we're getting pretty close to that because you got Justin Steele that's going to be coming off the IL soon, and you got Cody Bellinger coming off the IL soon. Who are you kicking? Who are you keeping? I mean, that's really going to be the time that tells us.
Rios is gone, and hopefully Barnhart and Amaya stays up.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And we're going to, real quick, though, because before we do move on from the Cubs, I don't know if you guys saw. I just saw it when I got home. Apparently, Morel is getting reps at first base.
Yeah.
So I don't know
I did see
because
that.
his defense is a little poopy. So I don't know, right? That because that kind of opens up keeping Bellinger if that's the Cubs' plan, moving Morel to first and just dealing with that. And then that kind of does kind of spell the end for Mervis. I think that's too soon. I think that is too soon. I don't think
way too soon.
I don't know if that is in Jed's plans, but
I don't know if it's the end of Mervis, because I think Morel can still play okay enough, like around the diamond. He's got some positional flexibility, whereas Mervis will be mainly a first baseman. And even then, you got that lefty righty split if they want to platoon them at first base or do whatever. Again, I think it's way too early to pull the plug. That's all I got.
It's still interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's been a lot of ups this week, but there's still just so many frustrating lineup decisions. We're still not hitting with men on base. The Rays lost. We should have won that game. That was another bullpen issue.
No, though, actually, and I'll say Ross pushed the right buttons in the bullpen that day.
I agree. I agreed with pulling Wisniewski when he did. I think that was a good move.
He pushed the right buttons. Yeah, he can't throw the pitches. That day, I give him that credit. What I don't give him credit for, and I'll never give him credit for, is how he managed that 9th inning, having Miles Mastrobuoni swinging, bases loaded, 1 out. This guy is batting with a WRC plus on par with Barnhart's, which is 30. like how are you gonna have this guy swing it? And because he had no more bench bats, so he had to keep him in. But how are you gonna keep him swinging? Just safety squeeze. It's the old Joe. Take a page out of Joe Madden's playbook. Safety squeeze it. If you die, you die. Fine, but just do it. Like having him swing, and then Gomes, who doesn't take walks, really swing. I saw a tweet from somebody that was like, I love it how, the pitcher's literally trying to walk them in, and they're both like, absolutely not. They both were swinging. That was horrific. But how you avoid that is telling Mastrobuoni, hey, man, put that bunt down and then sprint to first, and let's hope, and
or just don't even take the bat off your shoulder, because you're doing yourself just as much good by trying to get 4 balls instead of,
or just pinch hit
the ball in play.
Against a lefty, which, hey, pitching is always going to be pitching, hitting is always going to be hitting, but the guy threw it 89, man. He's what? It's not like he's blowing past you like Josh Hader or nothing. Come on, guys, just put the bunt down. Oh my God, whatever.
For those of you that don't know Teige as long as we have, anytime he goes whatever, it means I realize I'm ranting, I'm still fired up, but I'm not going to make you suffer through it. So anyway, I think I don't really think we have much more we can say.
I agree. I think we can move on.
Hopefully we're turning a corner. Hopefully.
Hold on. Did we talk Steele being gone?
I mentioned that he was on the IL a few times. I didn't go into any details.
15-day IL retroactive to his Rays start, so we're still gonna be missing him for another 10 days.
That's fun. That's fun. At least we get to see him
at least,
which I like.
Yep.
Yeah,
I do like seeing Amaya.
Yeah.
So this week, wrapping up the West Coast. I know tonight we're kind of getting killed by the Padres right now, unless something's changed. And then we move on to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, which translates to the Angels of Anaheim. Always love that. And then are we finishing up against the A's again or anything? No, because we already played them earlier in the year.
I think we have some more West Coast.
San Francisco, I think.
San Francisco, right. That's the other one. It'll be 3 games against the Angels starting tomorrow, and then immediately to San Francisco against the Giants with our next off day next month.
Maybe I should get tickets for that. I live right next to them. So,
to the Giants?
Yeah, I only live an hour, 15 minutes away, an hour and 15.
Might as well.
The stadium.
I have heard nothing but good things about Oracle Park. Is it Oracle Park?
Me too.
Yeah,
it is.
So I'd say if you got time, go check it out. Give us a review.
Maybe I will. I'll probably get nosebleed seats though for that one.
Oh yeah,
We're giving you ideas for your 180 segment.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, and I heard the food there is incredible. I just scrolling on my TikTok, something popped up with a guy saying that Oracle Park is the best baseball park he's ever been to. The food options are incredible. The drink options are incredible. So I'd say check it out. Not my money though. All right, moving on here. Nothing really on the Blackhawks, but there is one funny thing that happened that Nick wants to mention, so I'll let him take it away.
Oh, I didn't want to mention it. I just thought it was funny. You can mention it. Go ahead.
Oh. Okay, well, Nick put a video of Connor Bedard on the TNT broadcast booth for the Stanley Cup playoffs in our group chat. And so I guess the NHL just brought a few of the prospects in for the Stanley Cup finals. And for those of you that don't know, the TNT broadcast booth has former players like, I don't know, Wayne Gretzky, Ryan Biznat, Paul Biznat, Biz Nasty from Barstool, who was kind of a fringe enforcer, bench defenseman, or third or fourth line defense guy. So they're interviewing Bedard, and he's like, oh, how is it being here? He's like, oh, it's so cool being surrounded by all these great players and Biz. And so we have a 17-year-old who is going to be projected the #1 overall pick, already chirping a seasoned NFL vet that was an enforcer that outweighs him by like 100 pounds. So definitely some cojones, and it was funny. Shows he had some personality, which is nice.
Can I just say, I think it's hilarious that both Connor Bedard was asked about the Blackhawks, and he's like, oh yeah, it'd be great if they pick me. And every time Kyle Davidson's asked about Bedard, it's like, yeah, we got prospects that we're looking at. Like, we all have to do this dance for like a month where everybody knows the Blackhawks are taking Connor Bedard, but nobody can say it. Like, you can't customize a Blackhawks jersey with Bedard's name on it. I've tried.
They still won't let you do it?
No, they won't let you do it. You got to wait till he's drafted, and then you got to actually get it.
Well, it's like the NFL draft where everybody knows what quarterback is being taken, but they'll just wait on the TV.
They'll go the full 10 minutes
very end, and then they'll pick him. I was like, oh, I guess it's
I didn't know who's going to get picked first in this draft because of all the Anthony Richardson.
Oh yeah, this year was
wild.
Yeah.
It was. But this even happened when Trevor Lawrence was coming out of the draft for the Jaguars, and then it's like, we're just gonna, or like the Bengals when they picked Joe Burrow. They literally had Joe Burrow going over their playbook and practicing their playbook for like months before the draft, and they still took up until the clock was out to make the pick. It's just like, they're just doing that for the airtime.
Yeah.
Anyway,
pretty much.
Teige has Blackhawks news though. From that I wrote in, Connor Bedard, who is our future Blackhawk player, is the first player in CHL history to win 3 season awards in the same year. He won Player of the Year, Top Scorer, and Top Prospect this year. So, again, kind of doing the dance.
I am so proud of you.
I know.
I'm so proud of you.
Our boy is learning hockey.
I know. Oh, I still have to watch some hockey, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll have a watch party.
Once the season starts, I'll watch. But I guess there's the playoffs, the Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah, I learned last week that the NHL season actually has more days in it than the MLB season does, which is kind of mind blowing. But
yeah,
we'll switch gears here. Touch on the Bears real quick. Nothing crazy. OTAs are happening, so of course we're all watching the stupid clips that the Bears posted Justin Fields to DJ Moore and getting way too excited about it, even though it means absolutely nothing.
They're sick clips, though.
Super Bowl.
And then I do see here Andrew does actually have some real news to report. So I'll let you dig on that real quick.
Yeah, so basically, so OTAs, so organized team activities, they're not official. I guess it's not official training camp, but they are, team organized practices. They're not going hard like they do at training camp or whatnot. So there's no hitting, no pads on, none of that stuff. It's a lot of 7-on-7, a lot of install. So a lot of 1-on-1. So they're not really going crazy. But we're at the point of the offseason where teams have had voluntary OTAs. So the players, this is like negotiated in the CBA. The players don't have to be at these practices. But it is notable that the only 2 players to not be at voluntary OTAs for the Bears over the past week or so has been Jalen Johnson, who it's notable here because he's going into the final year of his rookie contract, and then Nate Davis, offensive lineman, who they signed this offseason. So he's going to the first year of his deal with the Bears here. So I don't think either of these are big deals. Like Jalen Johnson, that seems like the classic, like trying to do whatever pull he can, whatever leverage he can to get a new contract he's going to use. So he's going to sit out of voluntary OTAs. And then Nate Davis, it sounds like this has been something that he's done going back to his time in Tennessee, because a lot of veteran players, they like to work out on their own when they have the option to. That's why they negotiated voluntary OTAs into the CBA, because a lot of players don't want to have to be at practices they don't have to. So just something interesting there. But I think Johnson is probably the more interesting one, because that contract comes into play. And I'm not sure at this point whether the Bears even pay Johnson, or even considering at this point, because they've drafted cornerbacks in back-to-back years in the second round. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm not sure if that's in the cards for them at this point.
Do you know, is next year's draft projected to be a strong cornerback class, or is free agency coming up here projected to be a strong cornerback class?
That I'm not sure. It's too early to tell. There are some interesting names at the top of next year's draft. Like, there's a guy who's from Alabama who's literally changed his first name to Kool-Aid. So if you want to get if you want an all-time name right there, like, we already have an all-time name coming up for this upcoming.
We really be drinking the Kool-Aid.
Drinking the Kool-Aid, that's right.
Literally.
But it's too early to tell for free agency. You really don't know, because a lot of these guys that are projected to be free agents are probably going to get signed by their teams going into the year anyway, especially the big names. But I think what's interesting for Johnson is that obviously this regime, Brian Poles, did not draft him, and they have no ties to him long term. They don't have to. It's not like, Ryan Pace, I feel like a lot of times he felt obligated to sign a lot of his guys because he drafted them and wanted to stick by them for as long as he could. The Bears don't necessarily have to do that. They drafted Kyler Gordon in the second round last year. He's probably going to be their long-term nickel. They drafted Tyreek Stevenson in the second round this year. He's kind of like a Jalen Johnson clone in terms of being that big outside corner that's really ideal for this scheme. And they also drafted another corner on day 3 that a lot of people that I talked to really like Terrell Smith out of Minnesota. Apparently, there's a lot of scouts out there that really like him. So take that for what you will. So the Bears don't necessarily have to sign him at this point. And I think because of, here's the thing with Johnson, he gets injured a lot. So you have to kind of factor that in. Like, are they willing to, put long-term money into a guy who you don't know whether he's going to be on the field all the time? That's always been the issue for him going back to college.
What? Oh gosh, what was Fuller, like, because he did kind of a prove it deal with us, and he proved it. So I don't know. Obviously, that was Pace, different organization or different regime, but I don't know if maybe
different time too.
Yeah, that's true. But there's no such thing as too much cornerback depth. It's the hardest position in NFL for a reason. Hard position in football for a reason. Besides quarterback, of course. And I don't know. I would love to see him. I would love to see a healthy Jalen Johnson stay on this team. I think it is kind of something that it'll be something that circulates Bears Twitter for all year until he finally gets an extension, or that he doesn't, and it's just going to be what it is.
If we know anything about this front office, Ryan Poles in this front office, it's that they are like value hounds. They have a price that they're willing to pay for every player that they consider signing, drafting, whatever. They have their price, and they're not willing to move past it. Now, whether or not Jalen Johnson wants more than they're willing to pay, I don't know. I think if Jalen Johnson is a very good player, like Teige said, you can never have too much cornerback depth. If they're able to bring him back, I think, I don't see why they wouldn't if they can agree on a price. But the price is the thing. Now, I don't think this is going to be like a Roquan Smith situation. Jalen has an agent, not Saint Omni or whatever the dude's name is. That's just,
I don't know what
you're not going to get a trade request or a notes app or anything. I don't think any of that's going to happen. But yeah, it's just something to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, but Roquan's a great example of what you kind of mentioned, Nick. There, like, they had, like, Roquan's one of the 5 best linebackers in all football, was well deserving of the deal that he got from the Ravens. From a market standpoint, I'm not saying I would have made that deal for the Bears specifically.
But that's the thing. Would you have made that deal? Like, clearly,
that's the thing. Like, they had clearly a line in the sand that they weren't willing to cross, and they didn't cross it. And you look at what they did in free agency this year. They did the same thing they were in on Mike McGlinchey, and Denver upped their offer, and they were like, "No way, we're out. We're not making that deal." And as a result, the Bears are still sitting on like $30 million in cap space because of how conservative they've been in terms of if guys are getting way overpaid or offers that are going to be way overpaid, they're not making that. They're not making those deals at this point.
Well, some other Bears news to touch on. Sorry, this isn't in the outline, but I just remembered it while we were talking. As if people from Naperville did not need another reason to claim that they are from Chicago. The Bears are not necessarily exclusively looking at the Arlington Park Racecourse area for their new stadium. They have also been in talks with other suburbs and other locations, one of which, the main one that was mentioned, was Naperville as a potential stadium landing site. So we'll keep our eyes on that.
Okay, can I go off about this for a minute?
Yes.
Okay. All right. They're not seriously considering Naperville. They're not seriously considering Chicago. They're going to go full ahead with Arlington Heights. I have a statement from the Bears. This is from Kevin Powell on Twitter. He's got a statement for the Bears. I'm just going to read it. The Chicago Bears' goal of building the largest single development project in Illinois history, led by billions of dollars in private capital investment and the jobs and economic benefits generated, is at risk in Arlington Heights. The stadium-based project remains broadly popular in Arlington Heights, Chicagoland, and the state. However, the property's original assessment at 5 times the 2021 tax value and the recent settlement with Churchill Downs for 2022 being 3 times higher fails to reflect the property is not operational and is not commercially viable in its current state. So that's all this is. Cook County jacked up the taxes on the property. The Bears don't want to pay taxes. That's all this is. They're just trying to get Cook County to back off on the taxes. It's a play.
Kind of stole the thunder on my Naperville joke, though, so now I'm upset. But...
Well, too bad. Too bad. That's what Naperville deserves.
Don't get Nick started on taxes, guys.
Do not get me started on taxes.
What's your catchphrase, Nick, about taxes?
Don't get me started on them.
This is a sports show.
That's not what I was going for. But anyway, we'll move on.
That's
here.
the most politics we're going to talk on this show.
We'll get moving on here. A little bit to cover on the Bulls. So, Andrew, I'll defer to you to start with on that as well.
This? Oh, man. Yeah, so basically, I mean, we've hinted at this in previous episode, or at least it's been hinted at before we've covered it. But it sounds like the Bulls, I should say, are trying to get it locked in with Nikola Vucevic on a 3-year deal before free agency starts, or at the very beginning of free agency. And it goes back to everything we've said about this entire concept of bringing back Vucevic, is that it's not that Vucevic is a bad player and wouldn't be worth it in a vacuum, but it's the overall message you're sending as an organization that you're settling and willing to settle for mediocrity as long as it puts you in a position to maybe get an extra game or two of playoff revenue. That's really what this is. And I'm just curious to see what they actually want to pay Vucevic at this point, because he's coming off a contract where he's getting paid about $25 million a year. With the way contracts are going right now, do they escalate that contract? Do they go a little bit under that? If it's anything more than like $20 million, they've got to be crazy. They've got to be out of their minds, because Vucevic, in a vacuum, like I said, he's probably worth more than that. But for the value that he brings to this team, there's just no way. And we go all against the sunken cost, fallacy, to where they obviously made a bad deal, trading for Vucevic, giving up 2 first-round picks, giving up Wendell Carter Jr. It hasn't worked out in their favor. The worst thing you can do is double down on that move by giving Vucevic a big money deal and sticking with the same core that they've had for the last few years that just hasn't worked out in a meaningful way. So it's just, I don't know. It's just rough with this front office right now.
And Andrew, like you said, it's not that we think he's a bad player, because I've seen some people mention on Twitter, it's like, oh, who else are you going to get for that price? It's not about Vooch as a player. It's about what bringing him back means for what the Bulls offseason is going to be, which, like, as we've said before, there's a disconnect between what they should do and what they're going to do. We believe what they should do is blow it up, because you're not winning with this core. You're not winning with this big 3. As we said before, that big 3 spent more time together on the court than any 3 players in the NBA, and that team finished under 500.
Yeah.
And, it isn't, again, it's not about the player. It's about the direction. So we're just going to run it back. We're going to bring everybody back and hope we win 20 more games. Like that's
the definition of insanity.
I was
Doing the
gonna
same
mention
thing
that.
over and over again, expecting a different result. If you're going to keep the same 3 guys that aren't actually producing, what are you doing? You're going to expect it to change all of a sudden when clearly the chemistry isn't there or the production isn't there. It doesn't make sense. So
yeah. And I was going to mention that too, Nick. You mentioned how Bulls Twitter has been like, well, who else are they going to bring in? It's like, bring in nobody for all I care. You don't need to be like the best direction for this franchise. Is
give Pat Williams a bunch of minutes. Let him be the guy. Let him develop. Like, come on.
Yeah. And look, if they're going to re-sign Vucevic, they have to trade one of Levine or DeRozan at this point. You have to. Or both. Like, I would recommend both, and you don't re-sign Vucevic to a long-term deal because that just seems like a waste of time. But if you're going to re-sign Vucevic and try running back and try to be competitive next year, like, I just don't think these 3 work together. Like, all 3 of them are one-way offensive players who don't play any defense, although Zach's probably a little bit better on that end now that he's matured as a player, but he's still not a positive there. But like, DeRozan's definitely a negative defender, and Vucevic is definitely a negative defender, and he doesn't bring enough offense to the table because when you combine him with Levine and DeMar, who both need the ball to be successful, none of them are great off the ball. And Vucevic, he's a good 3-point shooter, but he's not good enough to make up for the fact that DeRozan is literally allergic to shooting 3-point shots and making 3-point shots. That doesn't help the equation here. Like, Vucevic, the best way to maximize him is to give him the ball in the post and let him, go to work there or at the high post. And you're just not doing that with Levine and DeMar, who need the ball at all times to be effective. It's not a great mix right now.
Hey, Andrew, I won the NBA Finals in NBA 2K23 or whatever with the Bulls, so I need you to calm down. Quick sidebar.
Were you on rookie mode or?
No, I was on the second or third hardest, but like I abused it because I use the Sun 7-second system, and you can just get easy threes doing that. If you just use the Sun 7-second thing, there's one of the plays in that playbook where it literally opens a 3 every time.
Did you actually play any of the games, or did you?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Okay.
I did play. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, I want to say quick sidebar. I love how everybody uses the definition of insanity thing because it's like, yes, I too played Far Cry 3. But, whatever. It's just that was all I want to say about that.
Voss is the man. All right. Yeah. Think should be time to move on to our 4 stars of the week. I know Teige said he wanted to cover this one first, so I'll let him lead off. No baseball pun intended.
And it is baseball. No, but for real, first star of the week goes to Liam Hendricks of the Chicago White Sox. He beat stage 4 non-Hodgkin lymphoma in only 4 months. He announced that he was diagnosed with it in January, and the first game back, he received a proper ovation. The umpire was not brain dead. They did not give him a strike or a ball violation. And like, his first pitch back was a 102 mile per hour fastball right in the strike zone. So Liam Hendricks back. He's a competitor. If you don't know, like, anybody's not aware with Liam Hendricks' game, like, he's an Australian. He swears. He is shamelessly competitive. He's shamelessly fiery. I love it. I love that he beat cancer so quick. He rung that bell and he's back. And that's really what it's all about. As much as we love sports and our teams, seeing people healthy and beating cancer is awesome. So this star goes to you, Liam Hendricks.
All right, I'm up next. Going to talk about Palatine native and William Fremd High School graduate who, as a former Mundelein High School water polo player, you guys need to turn up the temperature on your pool. But Fremd High School graduate Mike Talkman scored 2 of the 3 runs in our winning efforts, or batted in, 2 of the 3 runs in our winning efforts against the Rays last series. Coming up from AAA, filling in for Cody Bellinger, playing some good defense, making some great plays, and like I said, driving in 2 of the 3 runs we scored in those first 2 games against the Rays. So Mike Talkman, Chicago area native, second star of the week goes to you.
All right, that moves on to our third star of the week, Miguel Amaya, first MLB home run in his first game back from the minors, and it kind of puts things into question here with the decisions being made by Jed and who's being sent down and who's being sent up. but you certainly hope that Maya can, continue to stay up at the MLB level and start to get into a groove here, because I mean, gosh, the Cubs need to get more offense going, and if guys like Amaya can, get the bats going, like that's going to be critical for them in the stretch where, like we talked about when we were talking about the Cubs, like they got to decide whether they're going to win or develop guys. Well, maybe Amaya can accomplish both of those things if he stays up at the MLB. So, shout out to him.
And our fourth star of the week is Colts cornerback Isaiah Rodgers. Now, this might be a little bit off the beaten path here, but he is being investigated for betting on NFL games, including Colts games, placing hundreds of waivers, allegedly. Now, the reason he gets a star from us is, you might remember, the last game of the season, the Houston Texans played the Indianapolis Colts, and Davis Mills and Lovie Smith led this miracle comeback to get the Bears the number 1 overall pick. And we're just going to go under the assumption that he allegedly may have helped swing the game in a certain direction. Let's just put it that way. So, Isaiah Rodgers, you're probably going to be banned from the NFL for life, but you get a star from us. So, yay for you.
No, I got to ask, is it actually alleged that he fixed the game? Like, is that actually brought up, or
I don't know if it's
stretching it to the point?
I'm stretching it to the point.
Okay.
I think it's the biggest stretch possible.
But could you imagine if the guy was like, oh my God, like, here we go.
You know what would be wild? I went back and watched the play, and this wasn't him, but like on the last Hail Mary touchdown, you know how the ball went through the Indy corner's hands?
Mhm.
It wasn't him. But if that was him, oh my God.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That'd
would
be like
funny.
100%.
All right, now moving on from our 4 stars to the fan favorite complete 180 segment. We're going to start off with Andrew. So feel free to get on a high horse for the next 3 minutes.
All right. So, Jordan, you actually got me thinking about this last week with your Star Wars segment. So it got me thinking about the Star Wars movies, the Skywalker saga specifically, and thinking about how I would rank those movies and my thoughts on those. So I thought I'd give that. Let's start with go from worst to best. I think that's the only way to
Skywalker.
do it. Funny enough, that's where we're starting. Number 9. Really, these first 3 are movies that I have no interest in going back and watching all the way through. I just don't like these 3 movies I'm about to talk about here. But number 9, Rise of Skywalker. I mean, you talk about a film, it's probably not as bad as the next 2 in terms of like the film itself, but in terms of what it did to the franchise, it basically destroyed the sequel trilogy to where there's really no point. It's a pointless trilogy now because you could tell that Disney was terrified of the fan reaction the entire time because of what happened with The Last Jedi, and they were trying to make whatever they could do to distance themselves from The Last Jedi. That's what they were doing. It was completely reactionary. It was all just a bunch of contrivances and just really bad plot contrivances.
You don't like that somehow Palpatine returned?
No, I do not like
You
that,
don't like
Nick. No. And it ruins the original trilogy too, because now it makes Vader's sacrifice completely meaningless in the grand scheme of things. So thank you for that, Disney. You really did wonders with that. But I don't want to go on tangent here about the Rise of Skywalker. We'll be here all night about that. But number 8 for me, The Phantom Menace. There's only 2 good scenes. Yeah, there's only 2 good scenes in this movie. The lightsaber battle with Darth Maul and the pod racing scene, which whatever. But other than those 2 scenes, it's a over-reliant CGI nightmare with terrible dialogue, boring characters, Jar Jar Binks, and just
Misa, humble servant.
That's Darth Sidious, Jar Jar Binks to you, okay?
Darth Jar Jar.
Okay, well, it's not officially canon yet, so I can't even say that that's a smart thing that George Lucas did. Without that thing in canon, it is the worst Star Wars movie in terms of the actual film itself. I cannot bear that movie whatsoever. I cannot get through it. Number 7, another movie I can't get through is Attack of the Clones. This is really close. It was up in the air for me.
I had to stop you, dude.
God.
Episode 8 needs to go below these 2 movies. Episode 8 was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
We're not going there. I'll explain episode 8. But
You can't.
no, Attack of the Clones is literally the same thing as Phantom Menace, except instead of Jar Jar Binks, you get probably the cringiest love story ever put to film with Anakin Skywalker and Padme, with the worst lines of dialogue. Like Anakin can't get over his whatever for sand.
Fear of sand.
Oh my gosh! Like the only reason we remember it as like
It's rough and
not
coarse.
awful is because of the memes, I guess, from this movie. But it's an
It's
awful
everywhere.
movie. I can't get through it. And I'm glad we don't have to talk about these movies anymore because I'm moving on to number 6. And these two movies I'm going to talk about here are movies that I can rewatch, but I really don't have much of an urge to rewatch them anymore because of what episode 9 did to them. But number 6, The Last Jedi, the most divisive film in the entire Star Wars saga. One of the movies that you either love it or you hate it. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of Star Wars fans think it is, but there's certainly a lot wrong with it. I cannot stand the Canto Bite sequence. I think it's very inconsistent from a storytelling standpoint, but I do like the Kylo Ren and Rey stuff in the movie for the most part. I think it's visually the best looking Star Wars movie out of the 9. And then, this might be a hot take here, but I don't mind all the stuff that they did with Luke. There are problems with the way they handle Luke, but I honestly think the way he goes out is kind of really well done, in my opinion. That's my hot take on that.
These are some fighting words, but
This
anyway,
is going to be a
continue.
10-minute complete 180.
Whatever.
God.
Number 5 is The Force Awakens. I actually think it's an enjoyable movie. I think it was a good setup to the sequel trilogy. It's just unfortunate that they really didn't.
Ryan Johnson exists.
Well, they didn't maximize the potential that they had with the next 2 films, obviously. And I get it. It's a complete ripoff of A New Hope, obviously. But I mean, Return of the Jedi is a ripoff of A New Hope anyway, as well. So you can't really say that's a unique thing for the Star Wars franchise. But let's get to the top 4 of the movies I actually like legitimately, and I actually want to rewatch. Number 4, Return of the Jedi. This is not a perfect movie by any means. I think. Yeah, I know. I see your face, Nick, but it's not a perfect movie by any means. The entire second act is really boring, and Ewoks are completely stupid. And Luke's plan at Jar Jar's palace makes absolutely no sense when you put an ounce of thinking into it. It makes absolutely no sense. But besides that, everything with Luke, Vader, the Emperor is fantastic. The practical effects are out of this world's good. They still hold up today. And for the most part, it's pretty satisfying in conclusion to the original trilogy. Number 3, Revenge of the Sith. I would not say that this is a great movie. It's legitimately, like, if I'm looking at this objectively, it's not a good movie. But
it's in your top 3. What are we doing?
It's not
what
a
are we
good
doing?
movie, but it's in your top 3.
I like it
What are we
more
doing?
than Return of the
Episode 8
Jedi.
sits
What can I
at
say?
6.
But it's the one I had the most nostalgia for because I saw it in the theater this is the first Star Wars movie I saw in the theater. So
That doesn't mean it's a top 3 Star Wars movie.
I think it's better than Return of the
It's
Jedi.
in my top 3
Really.
too, for what it's worth.
Yeah. It suffers from the same problems as the first 2 movies in the prequels, where too much CGI, the dialogue is really bad, the acting is really bad for a lot of these scenes. But I do think this is the one prequel movie where George Lucas actually knew what he was doing, and you could tell where the story is told a lot better in this, although Anakin's return to the dark side is way too abrupt. That's probably the biggest issue I have with the movie as a whole. But let's get to the 2 movies that are
Master
actually
Skywalker, what are we going to do?
It doesn't help that this movie is going to death. But let's get to the top 2, which are the 2 movies in the franchise that are actually legitimately good. The rest of them are kind of, they're not the best movies, if we're being honest, guys. But the 2 that are legitimately good, number 2, the original Star Wars movies, whether you want to call it A New Hope or not, whatever, it's up to you. But the original Star Wars movie, I mean, this is probably the most important blockbuster ever made. Revolutionary practical effects for the time, a timeless story, just a really fun, entertaining movie all around. And then number 1, The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it took everything that was great about the first Star Wars movies and then took it to another level here. It has probably one of the greatest plot twists of any movie in film history. And it's just an all-time classic, one of the best sequels ever made. So those are my thoughts on the 9 Star Wars movies in the Skywalker saga.
Tune in next week for the
Roast me.
rest of us to all do our Star Wars rankings
Yeah,
for Complete 180s.
that
It's gonna be
whole
Andrew's gonna be
thing-
something else that all of us are gonna do.
We're
our
not having
rankings.
this segment next week. We're just going to argue about Star Wars.
Yeah,
for 20
yeah,
minutes.
Yeah,
because
no,
that
that
was
I
one of
am
the most
totally down
abysmal
with that, 'cause,
rankings I've ever
man,
heard in my life. Ranking
all of
God.
that was some fighting words, except I have to agree on your top two. Spoiler for our debate next week, but everything else.
Tell me where I'm
my
wrong.
God.
A New Hope bores me, honestly. I can't sit through A New Hope. Apart from
Okay, we need to move on.
Save it
We
for-
need to
save it
move
for
on. That
next
was
week.
already a 10-minute 180. We're moving on. I'm taking back over, which I guess I'm going to start some fighting words with Teige here. But as you may remember, Teige last week disparaged our poor In-N-Out burger, which I think
Rightly so.
once we're done recording, I'm probably going to go and get some. But so I want to do a defense of In-N-Out burger. Now, Teige had said that it was terrible. And my rebuttal to everybody that says In-N-Out burger is terrible, and Teige, you can feel free to answer this question. Did you get the burger animal style or just the fries?
No, because I don't want to try it because it tasted awful.
No. Okay, that's the thing. You have to get the burger animal style. It makes it significantly better. It is not just Thousand Island dressing. It is Thousand Island dressing and sauteed onions, which are one of my favorite condiments. But all of that put aside, In-N-Out Burger is not a gourmet burger restaurant. Yes, I will fully admit Californians talk it up to be this godsend of like, oh my God, this is the best burger I have ever had in my. It's not. It's not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it is. But what In-N-Out Burger does very, very well is if you compare In-N-Out to McDonald's, which is the largest burger chain in the world. In-N-Out actually comes in either at the same price or a little bit cheaper, actually, for a much higher quality product. So again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's the best burger I've ever had because it's not. But if you compare it against McDonald's, Burger King, Whataburger, Wendy's, it's better than all of those. You get fresher ingredients because you can see them cutting the fries in the kitchen for the same or not even a little bit less money. So that is my defense of In-N-Out. No, it is not the best thing I've ever eaten in my life, but it is significantly better than all of the things it's competing against, which is all you can expect it to do. So,
All right, Jordan, I will go tomorrow. I will go tomorrow and get it. And I'll let you know. I'll let you know the animal style burger. And I'll let you know
Okay.
I hate it and I want you to be back. But okay.
double animal style, chocolate shake, regular fry. There you go. All right, Teige, it is your turn for your 180.
Yeah, well, Andrew had almost a 10-minute thing about Star Wars movies. I was inspired by him doing Marvel movies last week, and I was like, oh, with Across the Spider-Verse coming out, I wanted to talk about the Spider-Man movies. So I'm doing another ranking this week as well. We did not know this, we did not plan this, but I'm ranking all the live-action Spider-Man films from Sam Raimi to present and the 2 Spider-Verse movies so far. So that's going to be 10 movies. I'm going to try and make it as fast as I can. Some of these movies, I think, don't need much explanation. Some of them might. So starting with the worst at number 10, I have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. In my notes, I literally have it as boo and then boo again. It took the bad things that Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 didn't do well. I think it made them worse. Bad villains, too many villains, bad movie experience. I'll tell you guys privately the movie experience I had going to the theaters with that movie, but horrible acting, bad writing. It was bad. I remember leaving the theater hoping that they wouldn't make another Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie after that because I thought it was that bad. Number 9, this one I think I kind of put it a bit too low, but I'm gonna say it. I have Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man. I like it a lot. Okay, I think when it came out, it had some really cool web slinging scenes. I think Andrew Garfield was a great witty Spider-Man, as when you see the argument like Tobey Maguire is the best Peter Parker, Garfield is the best Spider-Man, Tom Holland's the best mix. That being said, the Lizard's kind of a boring villain. I'm sorry, he is. The movie I've watched it a few times. It really isn't worth watching again just to see Uncle Ben die again. It's another origin story. It takes too long to do the origin, and then it's like, cool, we got the Lizard, great. And it's supposed to set up The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was horrific. So, sorry, you get number 9. Number 8, You guys might hate me. I don't know. I don't know if you guys will hate me, honestly. I don't know if the people that listen are going to hate me. I put Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 down here. I really want to put this higher. I love it. I love it for the memes. I love it for the emo Peter Parker scene. It's so cringy, funny, but that's kind of the problem. The movie overall is it's rough. Okay. In good faith, I can't put it higher. It's 2.5 hours. It's long and it's still too short. There's too many villains, too many love interests. Gwen Stacy's played by my least favorite actress of all time. I don't think Bryce Dallas Howard should get movie roles, honestly. I'm sorry, I don't like it. I really don't. Even if this movie was 3 hours, 3.5 hours long, it would still be too short because there's just too much going on. Sam Raimi wanted to add a third villain, but then somebody told him to make it Venom instead of Vulture. Somebody told him to add Gwen Stacy. The writers didn't like it. I vividly remember, I don't know if it was Raimi or a writer that said it in Entertainment Weekly when the movie came out, that he felt like making the movie was like trying to jump out of an airplane with your chute undone and you had to put it back in the backpack and then pull it. Like, that's how much time they had. They had a deadline from Sony. It came out 3 years after Spider-Man 2. Too rushed, too much. I'm sorry. I love it, but I'm sorry. Number 7, I have Spider-Man Far From Home. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I love Mysterio. I wish that he's used more as a villain. Overall, I think it's still the weakest Tom Holland movie. It's a fun movie. I'll watch it again, happily watch it again. But when you're going up against some of these movies I have ranked higher, that's just kind of where you end up. Number 6, Spider-Man Homecoming. Andrew said it last week. I think that's all it really needs to be said. Great high school comedy feel. It's a fun Spider-Man movie. It was a great change of pace. They didn't do the Uncle Ben thing. It was a good way of just being like, we know what Spider-Man's deal is. Let's go. It was fun. Number 5, I have Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. Incredible animation, much like also Across the Spider-Verse. It's a fun movie. It's a standalone if they didn't want to make any sequels or if it bombed. But of course, it's spawned sequels and it's the start of a great animated series. It's a fun way to introduce multiple Spider-Man from the comics. They do the fan service. When you notice it, you love it. Great movie. Awesome. The only reason why it's 5 is just because I put these other movies up. You probably due to nostalgia. I love it. It's an awesome movie. Number 4, I have Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man. I watched it again this past week. Some of the CGI in it is horrible. Oh my God. That is some 2001 CGI at its fullest. But in terms of the nostalgia for me, the start of it all, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, one of the best movie villains of all time. I love him.
Will you save the girl or the bus?
Yeah, I know it. I love it. I love that movie so much. I can always rewatch it, even if some stuff doesn't hold up. I can watch it constantly.
I will say that Green Goblin, when I was 4 years old, scared the crap out of me.
Scared me so bad too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, crazy.
So they did a good job with that.
Number 3, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I don't want to spoil much if you haven't seen it, because it is brand new. But it was awesome. So cool. If you haven't seen it, go see it. That's all I'm going to say, just because it's too new. Number 2, I have Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I know people have kind of gone up in arms about saying that it's a worse movie than it is. I still love it. I think in terms of seeing Peter's internal struggles, balancing his life and his desire to become Spider-Man, it's one of the best depictions we've seen. Sam Raimi was always a big on that, on the dude, on the personality, on the human behind the mask. Despite the imperfections, I think it's still one of the best Spider-Man movies around. I always love watching it. I never get tired of watching it. I always cry watching it. So I love it so much. And then number 1, Spider-Man No Way Home. It may be fan service, but Andrew said last week, it's perfect. It's, again, not a perfect movie, but I mean, oh my gosh, the fan service alone is just worth watching it over and over and over again. I cry watching it. I'm gonna go watch it tonight. I love that movie so much.
I'll never forget the theater experience. That's a one
yes,
of a kind.
Yes, 100%. I was cheering. I mean, I don't cheer. I hate that when people cheer in theaters. I despise that so much. I despise when you clap. I was cheering. Okay. Yeah, I love that movie. It's so good.
Couple of points I want to bring up. Number 1, for the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, he did not mention Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, and I just gotta say, perfect. Second, with Spider-Man 3, the Raimi Spider-Man, I was at home the other day and I was walking past the TV. My brother's watching TV and Spider-Man 3 was on, and guess what scene it was? It was the emo Peter scene with the jazz music in the back, and he's walking down the street like
Peter Parker just did a Saturday Night Fever strike.
It is a perfect movie scene. It is so funny. Just the jazz music in the background. He comes out, he's just dancing, and people are looking at him disgusted. It's great.
I will say for Spider-Man 3, it's really disappointing because there were elements of a really good movie there. They had it all. Like I thought that what they did with Sandman the movie was really good up until the third act.
Because that was Raimi's original plan. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Raimi had a plan for Sandman and Green Goblin. And I think if you just did that with MJ, you're fine. But he added Stacy and Venom kind of at the pressure with others. And it was too much. It was too much. They had an option in the contract for a fourth Spider-Man. They should have split it up. They decided to put it all on the 3. It really hurts it. And it really is unfortunate because I remember being a kid and wanting to love it. I wanted to be like, this is the best Spider-Man movie ever. It's not. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not even close. But yeah.
The scene where Sandman becomes Sandman, though, is one of the best scenes in the entire trilogy, in my opinion. It's
fun movie to get drunk to with friends. I did that.
Absolutely.
That was really fun. Yeah, that was a good time. That was a blast. We were laughing so hard that we got noise complaints.
Well, I think we got to get wrapped up here. Nick would not tell us what
mine's not going to go 10 minutes. Don't worry about it. All right. So for those of you who are unaware, this past week we had a birthday in the 4-Star Podcast family. Like last week, our very own Andrew Freeman turned 26 years old and said goodbye to his parents' health insurance forever.
Sad day.
It's a sad day. So in light of the special occasion, I thought I'd use my time this week to say a few words about the man himself.
Oh, God.
I'm sure we've mentioned this before on the podcast, but if you don't know, Andrew and I are cousins. And
if you can't tell by looking at the video that they're related.
Yeah. Actually, we've been out at bars and we'll get mistaken for brothers pretty often, which if that were the case, it would solve the mystery of where all my ugly went. But, since we're literally family, I thought I'd share some fun facts with the audience so you can get to know this big oaf a little bit better.
Oh, jeez.
He went to Bradley University for a sports management degree and now has a full-time job in neither sports nor management. As a freshman in high school, he adamantly claimed he could beat LeBron James in a free throw shooting contest. In his defense, though, he and LeBron both ended up playing the same amount of college ball. So there's that.
That's true.
He's one of the few people I know that's capable of beating Eddie Lacy in an eating contest.
Did that actually happen?
It would happen.
I just know he's capable of it.
Oh, okay.
This man just devours food. He just goes for it. He's a huge Marvel and Star Wars nerd, which means that the only thing that has to happen for him to become the most unbearable Disney adult is Mickey Mouse deciding he wants the Bulls. He hates running the football more than Aaron Rodgers hates his family, and yet his dumb ass decided to be a fan of the team that can only run the football.
What can you do?
Yeah. And if you're out and about and you ever want to summon Andrew for whatever reason, just yell, "Mitch was a good quarterback," actually, and he'll be there in seconds. Just be prepared for a bunch of incoherent screaming and grunting about offensive DVOA and expected air yards per attempt or whatever else. Now, I have a few more of these, but the rest that I have will either get him fired, canceled, arrested, hanged, or exiled to the couch by his girlfriend. So I'll just close by saying, happy birthday, Andrew. Here's to another year of watching you scream at the TV every Sunday when the Bears inevitably crush our souls. Happy birthday, bud.
Love you, Nick. Thank you. You really summed it up well.
That was good. My proudest moment in interacting with Andrew was we made a bet who would start when it was between Trubisky and Foles, and I said, of course, Trubisky is going to get the game 1 start, and Andrew was adamant this was going to be Foles because no way would Nagy be dumb enough to start Trubisky again. And that was a nice little $50 payday. So
it lasted 3 weeks. Only 3 weeks.
Still won the
bet, though.
He still won the bet. And then the next year I tried making a bet with Andrew again. He declined immediately. So
oh man.
Don't make the same mistake twice.
That's right. That's right. That's a good.
Unlike Mitch, who does make the same mistake twice.
Or several times.
More than twice, I shouldn't say.
Well, happy birthday, Andrew. I think that'll about do it for us this week. Once again, we are the 4-Star Podcast. I am Jordan DuPont. You can check us out on Twitter at 4StarPod CHI. We also have a website, 4starpodchi.com. You can check Nick out on Twitter at Nikola21, Teige out on Twitter at TMMullen007. And as always, you can catch Andrew Freeman on Twitter at AJFreeman25. He also does work for the Bear Report on 247sports.com and the Picks for Polls podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week where we'll be back ranting and raving. Have a good one.